Hello and welcome to a cut-down, streamlined version of the Board podcast. We're going to run through a quick preview of the Week 16 games. And, of course, arguably the NFL has done a stellar job, given the uncertainties of COVID, in getting us this far without too many cancelled or rearranged games. We haven't lost the whole week of football yet. That in and of itself is a little bit surprising. Couple of interesting games to start the week. And given we have joining us this week, we've got, as well as Fooey, we've got Mr. Shuttlesworth sitting in for a couple of our regular turkeys. We might start with your team, mate. Viking kicking it off against the Saints on what is, I believe, effectively the Christmas game in America. So excited to be playing football on Christmas, even though for you guys blokes it's a meaningless regular season game yet again in December.
Given the current state of the team and the loss we just had, no. I think they probably thought at the start of the year that this would be a great matchup on Christmas Day, but I think this time around they might regret it.
But you get to see Drew Brees throw the ball and run a sweep on, will it go 5 yards or 8 yards downfield?
As long as when he's throwing this week, we still hear all 11 of his ribs crunching around and it goes like 5 yards, well then maybe. But if we're still missing a few of our pieces and they potentially get Thomas back and Breeze goes up a notch, I think it might be a little bit one-sided at the Dome.
Are they allowed to have fans? Given it's Louisiana, I'm assuming that they don't have very many kind of, what would be the polite way to put it, restrictions on wearing masks and thinning things out. I'm assuming it's pretty much a free-for-all in the old city of New Orleans.
I'm not too sure, although even if they do win by 40, I'm sure they'll still find something to complain about. So
True.
We'll find out.
Let's start a petition for something.
So you're joining in watching this, no doubt, on Christmas Day as opposed to watching the Boxing Day test. You'll be drawn to this game, Fooey?
I would like to, but I will be working this day, unfortunately.
Flex. Look how much money I make. I make public holiday wages. Really?
Yeah.
You're not going to have the phone going with the game broadcast in the back office?
Oh, it depends how busy we are. We know what happens with that. When I do that, though, I do my back, so probably not. Is it too much to ask from Minnesota to have one more win this season? That's all I want. This will help us cement that number one seed. So that's all.
It's all about the Packers. Okay.
Yes, it is.
I'd be happy. They're up there with the few teams that I like to beat the most. So if they have one more in them, let it be this week.
All right. We've skimmed over the game, but we've neglected the most critical, absolutely essential discussion of the whole thing. Shuttlesworth, will your kicker fuck up again? Or will he be perfect, given he only seems to be at either end of the spectrum and never just semi-perfect?
It depends on if the difference would be we would win or not. If it's not, he'll make everything. If it is, he'll miss just enough or everything. That's about how it always goes.
Oh, I like it. All right, then we have the December 27th game, which I'm talking in Australian time, which will start with Tom Brady against Matt Stafford. Now, Brash is a big Matt Stafford fan, but he's not here, so on his behalf, I'm going to say Matt Stafford's going to implode. Tom Brady's going to steamroll over him, and the Bucks will win and march on into the playoffs. Fooey, am I being a little bit unrealistic with that prediction, or are the Lions done?
Yeah, the Lions are done. Obviously, Bucks still have a lot to play for, and my recollection is that the Bucks really have only steamrolled over one offense this year. Otherwise, they've been average to good. So yeah, they probably need to stamp their authority going down the stretch into playoffs.
Special question for you, because I know the Vikings have such a history of extraordinarily outlier special teams performances. The Lions pulled one of the more outlier special teams plays last week, and that resulted in their special teams coordinator getting the sack immediately after the game. Can we look forward to the Lions pulling another unscripted fake punt, or will they go back to being conservative and sticking to the game plan? What do you reckon, Shuttlesworth?
Given how it went, I'd say they will go conservative. But given that I think Stafford's questionable for this one, so he might not even be in playing, and I think their offensive line's quite beat up. So who knows? They might have to reach into the bag of tricks to keep it interesting.
Who's the backup?
Something else.
Nathan
name?
Peterman.
Someone.
No, so he was in Kansas City.
Yeah, hang on.
Chase Daniel, was it?
Yeah, that's the one, Chase Daniel.
Yeah.
You'd know him well.
You know full well that Mike Glennon will be next one off the rank or maybe they'll dig out Jeff McCown. I don't know. All right. The second game, which is politely timed so that Brasher doesn't have to distract himself from his Saturday morning drinks, is the 49ers against the Cardinals. Divisional matchup. Real long history between these two teams over the last few years. But fair to say that Kyler Murray will have it all over the 49ers backup to the backup to the backup. Any point watching the game, or is it a foregone conclusion that Kyler Murray wins it all? Fui.
Yeah, well, the Niners have put the Q in the rack, so for the Cardinals to lose would be quite a stunning turn of events. I can't see it happening.
Shuts.
Yeah, I think this one will go fairly to script.
You can't see Ayuk becoming the new Julio Jones?
No. I mean, we did just see Arizona give up a lot of yards to subpar quarterback franchise, but I can't see it happening this week with either Beathard or Josh Rosen, so I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm glad you're so confident. I'll be taking the 49ers on this one, just like I
Their
took the
defense
Jets.
has looked a lot better since they've got some pieces back, so
Yeah.
Kyler won't
And-
have it super easy, but I can't
Well, the
see
thing
him
that
putting up
really
enough
stood
points.
out with the Cardinals' performance against the Eagles, but for all that we talked about, the Eagles didn't fold. The Eagles were playing not one, not two, but three defensive backs that the week before had been on the street, and surprisingly, that led to a 16-0 lead, including a block punt very early on. But then the Eagles' front three and underrated players in the safety position actually clamped down, and the Cardinals really struggled. Now, the Niners, as I think Shuttlesworth you were just mentioning, the Niners have a pretty damn good defense still. And I think that's the weakness for the Cardinals, is they haven't had very many games. They're a bit like the Packers. They haven't had very many games against decent defenses. And every time they do come up against decent front seven, they crumble. And I'm not sure if that's because of Kyler Murray or their offensive line's maybe not that good, or Kingsbury's coaching's not yet up to countering that stuff. But for that reason, I'm going to tip the 49ers, and I'm going to tip them to win by 10. So again, I don't often give betting predictions, but that's my read.
We just might have to tweet to Kyler to give him some fuel that Brasher said he runs around like a school kid when someone stole his lunch money, and perk him up a little bit.
Yeah, give him some incentives.
Yeah.
And of course, then we're left with the last game of the what in Australian time will be Sunday games. As the Boxing Day test gets into that boring second day, we can flip over to a bit of NFL. Brian Flores takes on John Gruden. For me, probably the most interesting coaching philosophy matchup of the week, and certainly the most interesting and consequential game of the week. And if the Raiders lose this one, is it a 5-alarm fire, Shuttlesworth?
I don't know how it works out numbers wise, but yeah, you'd definitely be looking at it. It'll be a really interesting game, actually. As you said, there's a lot riding on this one, and the Dolphins have definitely been the more consistent recently. But the Raiders on their day, as we've seen, can beat anyone. So I think this one will be really close and really interesting.
Do you think the Dolphins have learned their lesson, Fui, and maybe don't have Tua throw the ball 47 times?
It seems like it seems like they have, but you just don't ever want to say never in this situation, because once you think, oh yeah, they're doing the right thing now, they'll flip back to whatever they were doing initially. And yeah, it's well, in Chicago's case, it's probably too little, too late. In Miami's case, hopefully it's still early, and hopefully they have learned their lesson. They could probably do with a bit more star power at running back though before they go full on run. So I think they still need to throw the ball a bit.
I'm going to back Mr. Unknown Irrelevant to have another 150-yard game, and I'm going to pick the Dolphins to win this one. And I think John Gruden's coaching tenure comes under severe pressure. For what it's worth, Brian Flores, Coach of the Year for me, quite easily, not even close. Which moves us on to the first of the Monday morning game. We have the up and about Browns, and oh my God, hasn't it been glorious to see American Crow's stream of self-conversation? I'm going to talk to myself and talk to myself and talk to myself and talk to myself. And only Oldat's had any kind of ability to engage with him, and hasn't that worked out well? we have the up and about Browns taking on the Adam Gase, the dominant Adam Gase coached Jet, fresh off their first win for 19 weeks or whatever it is. Can you see this turning into the ultimate come down for the Browns? Will the factory of sadness produce its ultimate letdown?
If there was a game for them to lose, it would be this one.
This is it. It's got it typed on in gold letters.
It fits the script, that's for sure. I can't see it, and it would make Adam Gase happy, so I don't want it to happen.
2.5, almost 3 weeks of total bliss for the Browns fans, culminating in 8 days of giving shit to the Steelers. They couldn't lose to the Jets, could they? They wouldn't get shut out by the Jets, would they, Fooey?
Look, I never thought I'd utter these words or this phrase, but the Browns are too good to lose this one.
Well, all right, that's going on cycle repeat. That's the American Crow. That's what's known as the Fooey jinx. You can blame that gentleman right there for your run of winless games, which will start this week and run for the next 2.5 years. Good job, Foos. I like it, mate. Having started Sundays or Monday morning 3 a.m. in our time zone, having started that festival of excellence with Cleveland against New York Jets, we move on to Trubisky versus whichever backup quarterback the Jaguars decide to throw out there. Is it even worth talking about the Trubisky-Foles controversy anymore, or is Trubisky clearly the leader of one of the franchises in your division of excellence, Fooey?
Yeah, I think Foles has probably run his race, and Trubisky's such a he no, I mean, look, I guess he probably is, but they seem to be better with him under centre, and I love the fact that they're going to finish middle of the road and not have a good high draft pick. But in this particular game, I guess we're really going to find out if Gase has actually learnt his lesson and is going to run the ball more. And yeah, as I said before, keep Trubisky on a leash. Don't ask him to do too much, and he'll do just fine. Yeah.
Do we really deserve to give the NFL far more credit than they're currently getting for having the foresight, the crystal ball, the amazing insight to schedule the games in week 16 so that it's AFL-esque. You got to admit it's like round 23 in the AFL scheduling. They got the 2 one-win teams playing at exactly the same time, so neither one of the fuckers knows if the other one's lost.
Yeah, I think that all the incentive Jacksonville needed to lose out the year they got this week. I think they will strategically do everything in their power to, even if Trubisky plays terrible and gives them a chance, they won't win.
Can we find a way to have the Jets and the Jaguars compete, see who can give up the most points? Does that make a difference in the strength of schedule calculation, which is so critical to the draft position?
When we have them play off for the number 1 pick the week before the Super Bowl.
Let's have a week 18, and let's have one game in week 18, and let's have it be the Jets versus the Jaguars. Oh God, I love that idea. You should be NFL commissioner, Shuttlesworth, or at least a fantasy league commissioner. Oh wait, you are. Isn't that going well?
It is for me.
Yeah, high bar there. Probably another, I don't want to say, certainly an underrated game, especially after how well the Finley played. Bengals take on the Texans. If you were told Deshaun Watson was playing Ryan Finley, most people would probably turn around and say this is going to be a triple-digit win to the Texans. I'm not so sure. So you give the Finmeister a chance to repeat his success?
Usually not, but I wouldn't have given him a chance last week either. So I guess he's at least got an ear prick of the NFL world, and I think we'll all just be keeping a close eye on that one just to see how he goes. But there's no reason for the Texans to not want to win. I think they should be trying to win just so they don't.
Hang on. Won't they get a worse draft pick if they win?
Yeah, but Miami's got
and they
their
won't
pick,
get in the playoffs if they win, will they?
Yeah. So I think it's embarrassing to give such a high pick. So they want to win to not give away such a high pick.
I see. So mediocrity is the goal for the Texans rather than a high quality draft pick, right?
Well, they don't have any picks.
Yeah, they don't have it. That's my point. Miami has their number 1 pick.
Ah, Now you make sense.
I'm ahead of
Drew
the game,
diagram.
mate.
I was just double checking you knew what you were talking about. Shuttlesworth, like how you managed to convert Fooeyism into something that our listeners can understand. That was very, very suave and very well done. Thank you for that. Makes my editing job easier. More importantly, can you see Deshaun Watson turning the ball over more times than Ryan fucking Finley?
Sorry, was that turning over?
Yeah. I mean, on paper, that's just such a ridiculous statement that I had to put the word fucking in there somewhere. But if you look at their stats from the last 2 weeks,
yeah,
Finley takes care of the ball.
I was actually quite impressed with the Bengals front seven. It's a little bit different against a mobile quarterback like Watson, but if they can get that pressure, you never know. You never know. It's not like the Texans have been amazing. So yeah, there's a chance.
They certainly don't have a run game, do they, the Texans, apart from Watson himself. And the wide receiver weapons are super, super limited. I mean, they've managed to get Will Fuller a bit more involved, but still super, super one-dimensional. And if the Bengals defense comes back and played like they did last week, yeah. Speaking of running quarterbacks, Lamar version 3.72 plays Colt McCoy / the backup to Colt McCoy / the backup to the backup to Colt McCoy. You think the Giants can cause an upset here, Fooey, or are we going to just see Lamar Jackson run up and get a bit more back into form?
We have seen the Giants play some decent football over the last couple of weeks. They couldn't want to win, could they? Baltimore needs to win.
Well, technically, if they want to win the division, New York need to win too.
What, do they really want to win the division? Let's not kid ourselves. No one wants to win that division. I can't see an upset. I would say there's I'll say 15% chance of an upset.
Shuttlesworth, and this is a bit more of an insight, I guess, again, trying to build on your Vikings experience with outstanding wide receivers. Given that we don't have Danny Dimes dropping the ball on dimes and that, Eli Manning era is long over, who's the best receiver that they've got there in New York in the Giants team?
It's between Slayton. If Sterling Shepard was healthy, it would be more of a toss-up.
And if Randy Moss was still 27.
Well, yeah. But I think he'd give the edge to Slayton just because availability is more important than lots of things, and Shepard is not available all the time.
What about Evan Ingram and his 10 drops and making the Pro Bowl? Must be him, surely.
Well, he said wide receiver.
For what it's worth, in terms of catching the ball, there's at least two other people that I would have mentioned, but they don't catch the ball. So, yeah. I do think it's something...
because of Big Bob Tonyan missed out on the Pro Bowl and it's a little bit salty.
Indeed, I did.
I did also want to highlight the fact that I think one of the stats that Danny Dimes wasn't, because I was a bit of a critic of Danny Dimes, mainly to stir Blackie up and get him going. One of the things I didn't really realise until I looked a bit closer at the Giants play in weeks 12 and 13 was how good their offensive schemes have been at getting Danny Dimes some pretty easy pass routes to complete. And he has been let down. I mean, the game against the Eagles, they lost that because Ingram dropped it. And there've been two other games where there were critical drops. And that, a lot of that is that they've managed to develop, I think a bit like the Bengals with Finley at quarterback, they managed to develop passing routes with no-name receivers that just recognize the limitations of their young quarterback and they stick to it, And that's something that a lot of the other higher profile teams could really learn from, I reckon, is just don't try to bust a 70-yard reception every fucking throw. Don't throw the ball 55 times. Just try to keep it basic and sustainable. Speaking of basic and sustainable, Matt Ryan, Pat Mahomes, old versus young, choke versus almost unchokeable, hasn't ever really completely collapsed. Easy win for the Chiefs, Foo?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there's going to be a lot of passing yards in this game. In a sentence, yes, an easy win for the Chiefs.
I'm actually going to take you up. $20 says that there's less than 300 yards passing in the game.
Total between the two.
Contingent on the forecast, which is currently for 3 inches of snow on game day, holding true. If there's no snow on game day, you can forget the freaking bet. But if there's snow, it's out there. $20, have a
done. Yeah, let's go. I'd like to bet.
Really. Then we're left with the last of the early slot games on the Monday, which is a traditional matchup. Actually, surprisingly, historically traditional matchup between the Squealers and the Bolts. The Colts. Sorry, yeah, my pronunciation's not great. I think it's fair to say this year, though, Shuttlesworth, the Rivers-led Colts are basically becoming an audition team for how much better the Colts would be with Wentz at quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah, or Stafford or Ryan.
Yeah. So and really, you wonder, is it in the Colts' interest to even try to win this one? And conversely, if you're the Steelers and you get out of this one with a win, does it actually mean anything if the other team's not trying?
I think out of these two teams, the Steelers have all the pressure they need to try and save some face. Things are crumbling around, and it looks like they're a locker room led by school kids. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back from almost hitting ground this week and see what they come up with.
Now, Fui, this is a special targeted question because I know you're the champion. You know, Shuttlesworth is the guru of memes and memes and memes and all the in-hip happening stuff, whereas you're much more a visually video-driven sort of dude. So you're right into your TikToks and your Snapchats and your so-ons and your so forth. If you're in charge of social media for the Squealers, do you chain Juju to the bench in the locker room? Noting that it is the Steelers' home game, and so at least in theory, this should be one of the weeks where he doesn't dance on his own logo if he sticks to his routine.
I think he should just. I think he should. Just be focused a bit more on the game, and get the social media director out there, and I don't know, maybe just get another helmet and hit him in the helmet. Yeah, helmet hit.
Thank you for that enormously insightful response to my carefully scripted question.
The funny thing about all this is that it's doing so well. I think outside of quarterbacks, his jersey's the highest selling jersey in the league.
His name's Juju.
I assume that it would be a hard conversation to give it. I assume he's making a lot of money off his TikTok and whatever else he's on. But I'm not one to understand dancing anyway. I think 99% of the time you just look like you're having a fit standing up, but that dance is ridiculous. I mean, bring back dabbing.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. And only because Brash is not here to give his mature adult commentary.
I mean, I'm all for most things, but that's just, I mean, come on.
I did like how the Bengals social media or Twitter person who does all that shit named him as TikTok superstar and not the Steelers star.
Yeah, the Bengals took many W's this week.
Yes, I did.
I will only say that I will tip, not quite as strongly as my $20 bet with the betting fanatic, but I will tip the Colts to win this one and send the Steelers into full 5-alarm fire mode. And I want to be really clear, I think the Colts will almost win this accidentally. I don't think they'll be aiming to win it, but I think you will see, and here's the real tip, inside news, heard it here first, Roethlisberger won't get through the first half. He'll be taken out. And then we'll get Mason Rudolph.
I hope he starts week 17.
For all their problems, Indianapolis still have a pretty damn good defense. And if Mason Rudolph is trotted out on that field and Phillip Rivers is standing upright with only one crutch instead of two crutches, I reckon the Colts win that one.
Well, at least to start with, it's the guy versus the guy who has 10 kids versus the guy who probably has 10 kids that doesn't know about.
And that's a nice piece of class to end that game review on. I have to admit, I thought you were going to say it was the guy with 9 kids against the guy with 9 chins, but you couldn't take it to that nice safe spot. You had to go over that line.
Yes, I did.
All right. Now, Blackie's not here, and it's probably unfair to indulge in any kind of enjoyment on his behalf, but I'm gonna. The Chokathon Chargers host the Elway Broncos, and it's fair to say that the Broncos fans have not reacted well to that lame-ass, pathetic performance that their team trotted out and the absolute freaking beatdown that they copped from the Bills. Maybe a trip to sunny Los Angeles will save the Broncos fans from a little bit of embarrassment, but this is a bit like that game that the Steelers that we were just talking about. If the Chargers win this one, I can see, particularly if Drew Lock winds up playing the whole game, Fui, does this turn into you're suddenly starting to see Locke put under the sort of pressure that Wentz is copping?
He will be, but I don't think he deserves to be. There's a lot of Broncos fans calling for Rippon. I don't know why. They must have missed the games he played earlier in the year. Look,
maybe they think he plays defense and he's going to go ripping stripping. I don't
know. No quarterback is going to do well with a poor offensive line. No quarterback is going to do well with a running game that is iffy at best. And again, it's not a talent thing. We know this. I think they expect too much. They need to fix the line before they're going to do anything, and they need to accept that.
You mean they can't live in a blurred reality? Shuttlesworth, what would you say to Blackie apart from good luck next year? What can he get out of this game apart from extra sleep?
You just want Locke to look a bit better, I guess, but you just want to stay healthy from here on out. You don't want any more injuries, and then look to, much like our situation, look to next year when you get Von back, Courtney Sutton back, and then you can, plus hopefully a pre-season into people like Judy and Hamler, and that hopefully pick up a few offensive linemen to give him a bit more protection, and then sit back and see what happens.
I can see this being a game. I might be overly negative because of the fact that I'm overly negative generally, but I can see this being a game where an outstanding, and you talked earlier, Fu, about expecting lots of passing yards. I reckon this is the game that is going to be the supreme passing performance because neither of these teams have spectacular backfields defensively. I can see Herbert throwing for 400 yards and Locke throwing for 3 interceptions. And that totally changes the whole dynamic around what they expect next year. Not just pressure on. I mean, Vic Fangio's gone, I reckon. He's done. I think Elway's under real pressure, but most of the Broncos fans still seem to think that Locke's the deal going forward. But if he screws up this week and next week, nah. Because that Broncos team's been a fair while now. It's since Drew Baby was there that they really haven't had much success, And speaking of not having had much success, we have the Panthers against the Washington football team, a la longest football playoff drought in the current NFL. Is this the game that Washington locked down their ability to get back in front in the NFC East? Or do we see Dwayne Haskins pull some stripper dance moves and forget his mask and his helmet yet again, Fui?
I think the defense is primed to dominate this one as they have been doing, and there's probably not much Haskins can do to fuck that up. Well, there's probably a lot he could do, to be honest, but...
Have you been watching NFL this year? Have you been watching Dwayne Haskins this year?
Look, he's going to have his mistakes, sure, plenty of them, but I'm sure the defense will cover up any major issues. That's just how bad I think the Panthers' offense is. So
really, I'm a bit of a higher believer in Bridgewater, but I do
is
think
McCaffrey playing? Or is he?
I believe he's off the injured reserve. I thought they were looking at week 17, but I could be wrong. Obviously, they haven't released their updated injury list. I think that comes out either tomorrow or the day after.
Surely you wouldn't bother.
Yeah.
Well, he gets another injury, and you lose him for all of next year. And with that contract that he's locked into already, I don't know.
Just put him away for next year.
I think it's fairly positive news at the moment that Alex Smith will play. So
that'd be good because I was going to ask him, in the absence of Haskins and Smith, who's the backup in Washington? The backup to the strip club individual.
Can I just say though, I think as well as Smith has done, I do think that limits their productivity some with McLaurin. I don't think he has that the game to have McLaurin excel. And they've got some speedy receivers there. I don't think he's the best quarterback for that system with those receivers.
It's Taylor Heineke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Heine.
Oh, yeah, good old Heine, yeah. Where did he play?
That's an appropriate way for that's an appropriate way for a Dan Snyder owned team to end the season with their hands all over Heine. on that high quality super classy note, we'll move on to the clearly most high quality super classy game of the week between the Eagles and the Cowboys. Talk about old school rivalry, talk about long historical matchups, talk about games I really wanted to hear Brash's views on, and then we'll talk about this game, which is going to be a shit fest of ultimate suckability. Realizing that whoever loses this game almost certainly locks in the highest draft pick in the NFC East. It is possible, ladies and gentlemen, that the worst team in the NFC East, which is the 8th best division in football, could actually pick as low as pick 7. Can you imagine being the shittest team in the shittest division in football and only getting pick 7 for your efforts?
There's always next year.
Thank you, Fui, for that insightful comment.
I mean, to get a higher draft pick.
Yeah, but not to be as shit. Oh, come on, Shuttlesworth. Surely one of these two teams is shit enough that they deserve a pick inside the top 5, yeah?
No, because I just feel like whenever one of these teams, either truly or they feel like they get screwed over, they make the most noise and it's highly entertaining. So, screw on, I say. Well, as you said before, you've got to do is start Jordan Mailata at tight end and W's.
Yeah, all right, we'll see. For what it's worth, I find it funny that the second last game of the year, the divisional matchup, the NFC or the NFL always schedules to get massive viewer highlights. The second last game on Sunday Football is going to have Andy Dalton playing against Jalen Hurts.
I think it will be a highly entertaining game, though. They usually are, regardless of how the rosters are.
Well, if nothing else, Jerry in the stand will be interesting. He will no doubt be trumpeting how the Cowboys will have had the record-breaking highest crowd for the season in their magnificent stadium, and politely leaving out the fact that in exactly 3 weeks' time, half the crowd will be in hospital with COVID. I can say that because Brash ain't around to scream at me. But
isn't the highest crowd of the year or whatever, isn't that the same amount of deaths they've had in the US? I don't know.
We won't go there. Maths is clearly not your strong point, Phil. You might want to check the facts.
No, I don't worry about facts.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, pal. At the same time as the NFC least 8th best division in football, 31st versus 32nd best teams in football showdown is happening in that magnificent dome in Dallas. We're also going to have a showdown between two great young quarterback, Goff versus Wilson, LA versus Seattle, Washington's hippie fest, weed smoking fans against the 12 fans that are left from when the LA Rams were actually good and had a real Los Angeles fan base. Obviously, unfortunately for the Seahawks, there won't be fans in their stadium, unlike in Dallas. But you'd still expect them to get over the line pretty easy on this one, Shuttlesworth, yeah? Surely Jared Goff couldn't actually turn in a good game.
You would expect them to be smarting and really, they'll want to come out strong and fix their reputation. So I'm hoping it'll be close, but it is in Seattle, so the referees will get them over the line. So there will be a controversial call or two.
Now, when we say that, point of clarification, do we mean a controversial decision by a certain coach to not run the ball from the 1 yard line, or are we talking about officiating calls?
No, officiating.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Definitely.
Thank you for the clarification. Philly, I know you'll actually be watching this one, maybe on replay 3 days later in your bathtub. This is probably the game of the week that has the most impact on the pack if the Seahawks lose, yeah?
Definitely. I've got my eye on this one. The Seattle, what do you call them? The weed smokers, Seattle weed smokers. Does that make LA like the coke sniffers? That would make sense, wouldn't it?
It's Los Angeles, baby.
I think it's really the complete opposite of the Eagles and Cowboys, isn't it? It's interesting. It's they both have playoff implications, but it's the game to watch it in that time slot.
Thank you for that insightful analysis. I'm so glad you joined us this week after your little rampage driving the car through Melbourne. Speaking of exciting games, on Monday after lunch on a public holiday where we might all be watching it when we're not working, Your mob go to likely chilly, likely snowy, apparently. Lambeau Field to host the Tennessee Titans and Derrick Henry. You should really steamroll this one in. I mean, particularly with your excellent tackling and your high quality wide receiver performances, you should really be able to win this one quite easily, don't you think, Phil?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Am I looking forward to this one? No. You know what I think of our defense? It's putrid. It's embarrassing. It's just
Shuttlesworth, we're going to see the first 700-yard performance by a rushing back in a single game from Derrick Henry.
Hopefully. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything to me, but it's always
speaking
fun.
to the resident Packer hater, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it does on paper look like it'll come down to Henry and what the real MVP Aaron Jones can do. Yeah, we'll see.
Open question. If it is really inclement weather, noting that both of these teams have a tendency, which is really surprising when you look at the stats, because I just assumed that Henry would have meant that the Titans had a pretty heavy run balance in their offense. They actually have a really heavy passing bias. So both these teams throw the ball a shit ton more than they run it. If it's snowing, or even if it's not snowing but it's windy and super cold, do you stick to that game plan or do you run the ball more?
I think we'll probably see a lot of short passes if it is. Both teams want to throw the ball. I think both teams are going to want to control the clock, but both defenses are going to be very focused on the primary running backs. I think we're still going to see a lot of balls thrown.
And it'll be a game of football and someone will win and someone will lose, yeah?
But there'll be a lot of short throws to try and just keep the chains moving.
All right, last game of the week in the NFL. The mighty Patriots, now eliminated from the playoffs, host the newly mighty Buffalo Bills. Second best game of the week, Shut?
No.
You're not looking forward to watching Cam Newton? You're really not?
I feel Buffalo will love where both teams are sitting at the moment and the opportunity after claiming the AFC East, the opportunity to go to Foxborough and put a beating on the team that's tortured them for a long time. I think that they'll be up and about for that. We'll see how Bill goes at stopping it, but yeah, it should be ugly.
All right. Fui, no doubt you'll be predicting a Cam Newton showpiece, an absolute blunderbuss from Josh Allen and an underdog win, yeah?
No, I actually 100% agree with Shuttlesworth over there. It's the perfect opportunity to kind of dance on the grave, really, of the New England Patriots.
You wouldn't do that sort of a thing, not with your history in fantasy football competitions of perhaps not doing well. Yeah.
No, I'd go all right.
First round pick every year, yeah.
The Bills just need to sign Juju Smith-Schuster so they can have someone dance.
True. I will give you that. All right, gentlemen, we might wrap up by just a couple of quick predictions in fantasy football. Probably the first and foremost, and I must confess that I'm a little befuddled by this. How is it that we have a situation where, and Shuttlesworth, this question is directed to you in the first instance, we have a question, I guess, perennially about good leagues and bad leagues in fantasy football. How is it that year after year after year, the commissioner continues to make the grand final a beta? What the fuck is up with that?
No.
Oh, sorry, Fui. You're only in the consolation. You're only playing all that for the consolation winner. Oh, sorry.
My fantasy teams have been putrid this year, so I don't feel I should be throwing stones. I mean, one final, but yeah, I feel
in Sleeper, which is one of those great leagues, commissioned, is it Danny that set that one up, or was that the one that Old that set up? I can't remember. Maybe Lenny Hayes, like
Danny Reed.
Danny deserves credit. Yeah. He's run that really well for a couple of years now. It's a really interesting way to use that Sleeper app.
It's a little bit Juju-esque with all the little animated creatures and little kid
Yes.
stuff, but I do like the platform overall.
And the chat box is more interesting than the podcast that we conduct, so you got to
I
give them
did
that.
notice that you found the gift things and ran with it early.
Yeah, and then I kind of just blanked out and left it to the rest of you who didn't go anything. I will say that if all that is doing security at my place, I'd be asking why he is making so many comments while he's on duty, but we won't go any further than that. I'm pleased we're providing him with some entertainment while
Someone
he's doing
had
his
to
shit.
replace LA, and he has assumed the position.
What a benchmark that is. What a bar of performance that is. And I guess Fui, I will defer to you now to say, how do you feel about your performance? Obviously, Shuttlesworth is a bit down. Even he's only got one grand final. How's your fantasy performance gone? You have yet to brag about your outstanding score in BFFFL?
No, my week in fantasy was pretty bad last week, except for the Flea Flicker League, where I am playing off in the final this week. So, yeah, let's just focus on that one, shall we?
Yeah, okay. And did you actually pick any of those things in your Flea Flicker League, or was that all auto select?
No, I've been thereabouts for the last few years. I've had a really good team.
Really good by Fui standards or by broader standards?
Mate, I've been having to try and pick between, do I start Mahomes or do I start Rodgers? It's really tough. So that's how good it is.
What do you think, Shuts? Is he overstating it?
No, I'm looking at it now. It is quite good, yes. Unfortunately for us.
I got an absolute steal when I traded Adams at his lowest with all that power. I can't remember what I gave up, to be honest, but I got Adams for basically nothing, so it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
All right, let's turn around and talk about one of the most exciting fantasy outcomes of the whole year. You know that league that you and Brash were really excited to find out about, that thing called Empire League. You remember that?
Yeah.
You know how it's got like all kinds of really spectacular salary cap restrictions and fixed term contracts and trading rules and bidding in the off season and a draft and then bidding on free agents, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And remember how somebody might have said my team was really shit? In fact, I think 3 of you might have said my team was really shit. Yeah.
I don't remember saying that, but okay.
Well, I'm pretty sure you did. We'll have to get it cut together and play it back. Guess who's in the grand final?
Shuttlesworth?
Come on.
I don't know anyone else who could be in the grand final, to be honest. No one in this podcast, surely.
Me against Blackie, you fuckwit.
What? How's that
Yep.
even possible? Two shit trucks going at it. Jeez.
What's even better is DRD, who poor buggers, they got the most consistent performing team. I believe you'd agree, Shuttlesworth, in the league.
Yeah, 11-2.
And
He was.
absolutely stunningly consistent scoring, in a year where we've had heaps and heaps of problems with players out because of COVID and all sorts of other, unpredictable games being rescheduled and all that sort of shit. So uniquely this year, almost every team has had weeks where they've only scored 100 and then they bounce back and score more normal scores. He's managed to keep himself going every week, 11-2, and he lost. And I'll just see if I can bring the game up.
Yeah, he lost because of the Eagles punter scoring minus 3.25.
This is why you don't have punters in fantasy teams.
Or if you're going to have punters, you don't at least have negative score options. Yes, it's he would have been better off not selecting a punter. He would have won the game against me.
What was the final score?
I think I won by 3 points.
Yeah, 189.11 to 187.34.
Oh, I'd probably neck myself if that happened.
So
you managed to win with Juju Smith-Schuster too as well.
Yeah, well, see, I had 4 players, and I was going to do a big rundown of this, but Brash had to leave early. You get to that end of the games on your Monday, and you've only got Monday Night Football to go. And usually you might have one player on each team that's playing in the Monday night game.
Yeah.
DRD had played all his players, so he had none left. And I had 4, 3 from the Steelers, 2 from the Steelers and 2 from Cincinnati. A punter, Juju Smith-Schuster, and 2 defensive back, Von Bell and somebody else.
Yeah, Hilton.
So all that power comes on and I think I was down by 30. All that power comes on and goes, oh yeah, Juju will get like 15, which leaves the remaining 3 players to get another 15 between them. And of course, Juju managed to rack up a 1.4, I think was his score.
1.45, yeah.
Thanks to the fumble. And I still fucking got home.
Well, you got 10.7 from your punter.
That damn straight.
14 from Von Bell.
Kevin Huber, champion, most valuable player. So, more backstory to this. Blackie had 2 years ago, I think, maybe it was 3 years ago, made the grand final against GG, who'd come up from 8th spot in the playoffs. Blackie had been scoring over 220 points a game for about 12 weeks consecutively, like just absolutely shitting it in. And GG beat him by, I think, 3 points in the. So he has the chance to have a repeat performance against yours truly. I don't have a chance. I reckon I'll lose by 60 points. But
if Diggs doesn't play, you might be. Things worked out all right for him with Odell going down because Jarvis Landry obviously picked up a lot there.
Yeah. And he's got a very well balanced roster.
Looks like.
Well, on any given day.
So
you just never say never. Just like you'd say. I mean, you've probably used up all your luck, beating DRD, but you never know. You could be lucky.
Oh, I won the comp.
Kissed on the dick twice in 2 weeks.
I won the comp 4 years ago against Douglas.
When people didn't know what they were doing.
No. He had a bloody good squad. And to be fair, I got into the. My squad's much better now because I got Mahomes and 3 or 4 other decent players on it. But that year, I got into the grand final or the Super Bowl or whatever you want to call it with the greatness at quarterback of Brian Hoyer and Austin Davis. Austin Davis won me 3 games that year, including the semi-final. So
because he's a Southern Mississippi Golden Eagle winner. That's what he does.
No, I think just because I did a Bradbury. That's all. Anyway, who's going to win that grand final, Blackie or me?
Oh, look, Blackie's got the form. You've got the luck. I'm going to say it's a tie.
Yeah, let's just repeat it in week 17. That'll go well. What do you reckon, as a league veteran? What do you think, Chuck?
It's quite hard to pick.
I probably should bring it up so that you can actually see who's in the respective team.
He got a decent score out of Corey Davis and AJ Brown this week, and Diggs might be missing or be limited. If Thomas plays, that helps him, but other than that, there's not too much. So I don't know. Depends. A lot rides with Mahomes and Herbert. I think that's where it might go either way.
Yeah, and that.
And if Juju has a redemption game for you, but
yeah,
I have to say he's the favourite.
The ultimate, or 2 things that show it as the ultimate 2020 matchup. Remember, we said DRD had 11-2 was his result. Blackie's record was 7-6, and my record was 8-5. And yet we're playing off for the Super Bowl. So you heard it here first. Washington are making the Super Bowl. On that happy note, can we stop recording?
Yes.